Over the next 40 minutes, I'm going to present to you everything you need to know about Microsoft Fabric, Microsoft's new end-to-end data and analytics platform. The key learning outcomes for this course are that I want you to walk away with a solid understanding of what Fabric is, the problem it solves, and how it solves them. But more than just the boring what, why, and how of Fabric, really what I want to share with you is some of my passion and excitement for Microsoft Fabric, so that you leave with an appreciation for the huge opportunity that Fabric represents for your organization and for you personally in your own career. We'll begin by telling the story of Houston Electric, a fictional electrical goods e-commerce company that is struggling with its existing data infrastructure and workflows. Through the case study, we will explore the problems that Fabric was built to solve. We will then dive into the big vision behind Fabric. I'll be showing you exactly how Microsoft Fabric solves these typical industry problems, and you'll begin to see why I believe Fabric is such transformational technology. Now, if you want to truly understand Fabric, then there are some fundamental concepts that you will need to learn. So in part 2 of the course, we'll cover what I believe are the most important concepts that you need to understand, those being One Lake, the 7 experiences of Fabric, and the 4 compute engines. Together, we will then look in more detail at the 7 experiences of Fabric so that you gain a proper appreciation for what exists and how you can use it. To round off this course, I'll be showing you how you can get started using Fabric for yourself and signpost some of my favorite resources for learning Fabric that I think can really help you in your own journey. So if you're wondering, is this course really for me? Should I invest the time to sit through this course? Well, the great thing about Fabric is that it's an end-to-end unified solution, which means that it caters for every data persona in your organization. So if you're working in any of these roles, currently maybe outside of Fabric, then this presentation will definitely be highly relevant and interesting for you. Or if you want to be working in one of these roles within Fabric in the future, then this course will also be a great foundation for you. Either way, no knowledge of Fabric is assumed. There's not going to be any code examples or too technical in the weeds stuff. This is quite a high level course. If you want a more detailed explanation and code examples, feel free to look at my other videos on YouTube where there's lots of that stuff on there. And I'll be using plenty of practical examples throughout to solidify your understanding of the platform. I've spent over 200 hours preparing this course, so I believe it will definitely be worth your while to stick around. On top of that, I've been using Fabric nearly every day since it was released, so I've got a good understanding of how it works. And I've been a data professional for the last 8+ years, working across Power BI, data engineering, data science, data warehousing, and real-time analytics, which you're about to see covers nearly every aspect of Fabric's functionality. So all that effort, knowledge, and experience has been condensed into this Introduction to Fabric course, which I'm releasing for free on this YouTube channel to give back to the community that has helped me so much in my own journey. As well as on YouTube, this course is hosted for free in my online community, built especially for people like you to learn Microsoft Fabric even faster. I recommend you follow the link in the description, because as well as the video lessons, you also get access to the course notes and links to further resources that I'll be mentioning throughout this video, throughout the course. And you can use the community feature to ask me and the community any questions you might have about the course and Microsoft Fabric generally. And it's completely free, so there's nothing to lose. So without further ado, let's begin. So to understand why Fabric is such a transformative technology, it helps to properly understand the problems that Fabric has been built to solve. And to illustrate this, I want to tell you about the story of Houston Electric. Now, Houston Electric is a fictional electrical goods online retailer based in the US, but it ships electrical parts around the world. The company's grown to over 400 employees to service a growing demand, and the company prides itself on being innovative and uses data to make better decisions. In 2015, Houston Electric hired their first chief data officer, who launched a digital transformation program to make better use of technology to drive business growth. Central to this strategy was the establishment of a central data department, now with more than 50 employees. And the company has invested in a number of cloud technologies in Azure and Amazon Web Services, and they've started using Power BI. Looking at what the company is using today, we can see that the company is split into the following main departments, at least from a technical point of view. Each department has a number of data technologies that they use to store and manage and analyze their data. And if you're not familiar here with all of the logos on the screen, don't worry. The point here is that the data landscape in the company has grown organically over the last 8 years with little strategic vision. This is a common situation that a lot of companies find themselves in. Each department uses the tools they prefer, and each department relies on data from other departments to do their job. For example, the customer success team manages the order reviews database, which keeps track of all the reviews that customers leave about their products. Now let's look at a particular workflow that uses this orders review database to see how it works and see how the company functions. So when a customer purchases a product, they leave a review on the website, and the review data is stored in an Azure SQL database managed by the customer success team. And the data engineering team in the company have built a data pipeline that copies this data every morning into a data lake for data scientists to analyze. And the data scientists then take this review data, they perform sentiment analysis on the reviews, basically to gauge whether the customers are liking or hating certain products based on the text they write. And these sentiments are then written into a data lake container. Finally, the BI team have created a Power BI report that communicates these findings back to the product teams to help them improve the products going forward. Now, they've got this workflow to a point where it's working, but it was a pain to set up and it's a pain to maintain. And data just for this one workflow is scattered across 4 different locations in 4 different data formats, some of which are proprietary, meaning you can't really access it very easily from other tools. And this is just one workflow. The company operates many data processing pipelines like this, copying data between different departments and between different storage locations and products. The complexity of the data landscape has grown so much that the maintenance of these existing systems and processes becomes an almost full-time job. So to analyze what might be going wrong here, let's map out some of the tools that the company is currently using under these 4 broad buckets of data ingestion, data storage, data engineering and data science, and business intelligence. Now let's analyze the current situation against these 9 considerations listed down the left-hand side. And to analyze them, we're going to speak to a number of key employees in the company. So if you speak to the chief data officer, they're going to tell you that the data architecture has grown organically, and now there are data silos all over the place. I'm the chief data officer, and I don't want to be the chief integration officer. So instead of focusing his time on how the company can generate more value from data, his role is focused on system integration, which is quite a massive headache for him and for his team and for the company. So in our visual map here, we can plot different blocks that represent all the different systems that create different data silos. Then, if we speak to the data engineering lead, he tells us that we're maintaining hundreds of pipelines, copying data between lots of different data stores for different departments, and it's messy. And to get around all these silos of data within and between departments and data products, the data engineering team have been flat out building data pipelines that copy data from here to there, and now they're in too deep. The pipelines are failing regularly as there's just too much to manage and maintain within a small team. So on our diagram now, we can see all of the different copies between each system and product, and how this is causing confusion and maintenance and problems with data quality as well. It's not just the data engineering team this causes issues for. Imagine being a Power BI developer. How on earth would you know which data sets to connect to within an organization? And how can you know if they're up to date and whether you can trust them? The data science team faces similar issues. They mentioned that we have data scattered in so many formats in different places, and it takes me days to get clean data sets just to begin an analysis. And even then, I don't know if I can trust the data. And on top of that, just the fact that so many systems exist and they're all different creates a cognitive overhead for this team. They added that I had to learn the intricacies of many different data technologies, and each one is different. We had a new starter, and it took 3 months to upskill them in all the different data platforms we use. So let's add those problems onto our visual here. The data scientists mentioned that there's no uniformity in data formats across the organization, which makes it difficult to get everything into a common format needed to begin analysis. On top of that, they have to work every day across 5, 6, maybe 7 data products. each with their own learning curve, user interface, user experience, and this is inefficient, especially for new joiners. So the different color blocks here show how the user experience is different in each of the tools the company uses. Next, the IT director is not happy too. He's saying we're using too many systems. All have different security profiles and requirements to keep data at rest and data in transit secure. And it's a nightmare. And it's true. It's not just the people on the front end of these tools that find it difficult. Spare a thought for the IT director and his team, responsible for managing access to each of these tools independently, securing them and the data stored within them, governing the data, and then monitoring and maintaining the systems generally. And as if that wasn't bad enough, he also gets the finance director on the phone every month to complain about the Azure bill. He added, "I dread getting our Azure bill every month. It's so unpredictable and sometimes scary. Each data product has their own pricing structure, so it's difficult to predict how much we will be charged month to month." So now we add billing and licensing to our visual here, and we can see that each product has a different licensing and a different billing structure, which makes it really difficult for companies to manage. And finally, it's the poor old dashboard user. They don't really know much about all the palaver that's going on behind the scenes here, but they can sense that something isn't right. They say, "I'm not sure I can trust the data that's being presented to me here. It doesn't always reflect reality." And they're right to be nervous. All of this complexity means that the data teams have failed to really get a grip on data governance and data quality. And the dashboard users at the end of the process are losing trust. And when they lose trust in the visualizations and the data being presented to them, then what's the point in all of this anyway? So let's just pause there for a second. And it was at this point when the head of Houston Electric, the smart guy that he is, was watching the Learn Microsoft Fabric YouTube channel. Wow, what a coincidence. He learned about Microsoft Fabric, and he knew that Microsoft Fabric could help solve the problems that they were experiencing as a business. And he was right. You see, within Microsoft Fabric, we have a family of data products available to us, which loosely fall under the 4 buckets that we were looking at before: data ingestion, storage, data engineering, data science, and business intelligence. Now, these tools, when looked at in isolation, they serve a similar function to the tools that the company was using previously. And it's a common myth that you sometimes hear people say about Microsoft Fabric is that, oh, it's just a remarketing exercise. They've just put a new badge on existing technology. But this viewpoint fundamentally misunderstands that Fabric has been completely built from the ground up to address all of the problems that we saw in the previous slides. It's not just a marketing exercise, but a complete rethink and re-architecture of how data is managed in your organization. And let's look at what we mean by that in more detail. So in Fabric, all of your company data resides in one place, and it's called OneLake, and it's a fundamental concept that we will explore in more detail a little bit later on. How OneLake eradicates data silos. So data across all these different products is actually stored in one place. And because of this, it also eradicates the need to create multiple copies of a dataset. A fundamental principle in Fabric is that a dataset should only ever exist in one place, and then be referenced throughout Fabric using a clever feature called shortcuts. So all your organization's data is stored in OneLake, and in OneLake, all data is stored in the same format called Delta Parquet. And this is an open standards format. And this solves so many problems that we highlighted previously. Most importantly, it solves the data integration problem. So data scientists, data engineers, and data analysts might all be using different tools, maybe different languages that they're familiar with, but under the hood, they're all working on the same data, which is in the same format. And they're not wasting hours and days trying to get that data into a suitable format so that they can begin their analysis. Next, Fabric provides a unified user experience. We heard previously that people were sick of having to log into multiple different platforms, each with a different look and feel. When in Fabric, you log in via a web portal, and the user experience is designed to feel similar to that of Microsoft 365. So you log in once and you can navigate to any Fabric experience, and each experience has a similar look and feel. This means you can spend more time thinking about how you're going to get value from your data and not worrying about how to navigate through the application. And for people administering Fabric, there's so many benefits too. For starters, access control and security is drastically simplified in Fabric. There's one access control method and one security model, applied across all tooling and experiences. And access to these resources is principally managed through workspaces, which is just a collection of Fabric items that makes sense for a particular security boundary that you want to set up. And because all of our data lives in one lake, data governance and discoverability becomes a much easier task. And in fact, Fabric has many features built in for governing your datasets. Next up is a really important one. Fabric comes with a single built-in monitoring hub, which monitors all Fabric activity across your experiences. So you only have one place to look if you want to monitor all of your different data pipelines, your notebook runs, any kind of processes that you're running within Fabric. And last but not least, billing and licensing in Fabric is unified, meaning that when you purchase some Fabric capacity for your organization, you immediately get access to all of the features and items. There's no longer a separate license or billing structure for all of the different products listed above. Now, there's different levels of capacity you can buy, depending on the intensity of your usage. And something to bear in mind here is that if your company is currently paying for Power BI premium capacity, you get an F64 Fabric capacity, which is a lot of capacity in Fabric for free with your Power BI premium capacity. This means you can create and use any Fabric items today without paying any extra. And all of these things that I've mentioned here are kind of a topic within themselves that I could go into a lot more detail on. But what I've done is, if you go through to the community link here and go through to the classroom tab, I'll leave a link in the description. There's links to a lot more resources where you can learn about each of these specific features in Fabric in more detail. Okay, so now we're starting to understand the power of Fabric. And you've heard about OneLake and the experiences and the compute engines and how powerful these things are when they work together. Let's look at how it works in more detail. So in Fabric, there are 7 experiences, and they cover the whole end-to-end data analytics workflow that a company might face. Now, an experience is just a logical grouping of tools that make sense for specific personas. For example, in the data engineering experience, you'll find easy access to tools that a data engineer would use frequently. And in Fabric, you'll find 3 main data stores, places where you can create and manage data: the data warehouse, the lakehouse, and the KQL database. The important point is that any tabular data that you create in any of these stores is under the hood automatically stored in OneLake. And crucially, all the data stored in OneLake is stored in this format, the Delta Parquet format, which is, as I said previously, is an open standards format. So to interact with data in any of these stores, we can write T-SQL scripts in the data warehouse. We can write Python, R, or Scala in the notebooks in data engineering and data science experiences, or we can write KQL in the real-time analytics experience. And there's also a lot of low-code and no-code options for beginners in each of these experiences. And Microsoft Copilot is now tightly integrated into Fabric. So you don't need to worry if you don't know much coding. Fabric is really built to cater for people with no coding experience, all the way through to professional developers. And these are features that they're constantly adding more of into Fabric to make it a bit less intimidating for beginner level people, entry level people to get up and running quickly in Fabric. Now, the ability to run scripts in many different languages against the underlying Delta Parquet format of OneLake is made possible by the 4 compute engines in Fabric. Now, these compute engines act like the integrator. The user writes some code in a language they're familiar with, and then the relevant engine converts that into a query of the underlying Delta tables in OneLake and returns the data to the user that they're expecting in the experience that they're currently using. Now, once the data is stored in OneLake, it's directly accessible by all the other engines without needing any import or export. And all the compute engines have been fully optimized to work with Delta Parquet as their native format. As well as data stores and scripting tools, there are more items available, a lot more items available to us in each Fabric experience. So now we have a good understanding of how the overall architecture works. Let's review each experience one by one, starting with Data Factory. So the Data Factory experience in Fabric is primarily focused on moving and transforming your data. And a core use case is using Data Factory to get new data into Fabric. perhaps from an external API or by connecting to one of your organizational systems. You could describe the data factory experience as a set of tools to help you with extract, transform, and load functions. Now, it's built for enterprise scale too, so if you have a lot of data or a high frequency of refresh, then this shouldn't be a problem. Now, the Fabric items that you can create within this experience are the data flow, and the data flow basically allows citizen developers to connect to more than 300 data sources, to bring data into Fabric, transform it using a kind of familiar low-code, no-code Power Query interface. So if you're a Power BI developer or you've used Excel, then this will be very familiar to you. And the data can then be written into one of the Fabric data storage solutions like a lakehouse or a data warehouse. We also have the data pipeline. Now, this is an orchestration tool, and it's used to trigger different data processing workflows, normally on a schedule. For example, triggering the run of a Fabric notebook on a particular schedule, or maybe triggering a stored procedure in your data warehouse. And pipelines can be used also to bring data into Fabric. This set of tools provides similar functionality to existing tools that you might be familiar with, like Azure Data Factory, Synapse Pipelines, and Power BI Dataflow Gen 1. And the main personas who might be using the Data Factory tools would be data engineers, analytics engineers, and also Power BI developers. Now, the data warehouse experience consists of the data warehouse, unsurprisingly, which provides a familiar transactional data warehouse solution with tables, schemas, views, stored procedures, and all that good stuff. And it's obviously queryable using T-SQL. And it provides features to make it more accessible for citizen analysts. So there's visual scripting, low and no code solutions built into this experience as well. And it's lake-centric, meaning that under the hood, it's highly scalable architecture. So it's not a traditional SQL server. Although you can use T-SQL to query it, under the hood, it's actually built on top of a completely different engine called the Polaris engine. Now, the Fabric items you can create within this experience are, as we mentioned, a transactional data warehouse built on top of the Polaris engine for scalability. So this is where users can create tables, schemas, views, store procedures, functions, all this good stuff. Now, it provides a similar set of functionality, although not exactly the same to some of these existing tools. So it's similar in a way to a SQL Server or an Azure SQL database. Because it uses T-SQL, it allows the user to interact with it using T-SQL. But it's more similar to Synapse SQL Serverless or dedicated pools because it uses the same underlying engine, the Polaris engine. And if you're using tools outside of the Microsoft ecosystem, it's similar to Snowflake. I mean, obviously there's lots of other tools that I could have mentioned here that it's similar to, but these are just a selection. And the main personas who might be using the data warehouse experience could be database administrators, data engineers, data analysts, those kind of people. Next up, we have the data engineering experience. And data engineering in Microsoft Fabric enables users to design, build, and maintain infrastructures and systems that enable their organization to collect, store, process, and analyze large volumes of data. So the Fabric items that you can create in this experience are the Lakehouse, which allows you to store and manage both unstructured data, so files, and convert them into structured data, so Lakehouse tables. And we do that using notebooks and other tools as well. But the notebook is where a user can write and run scripts in a variety of languages to perform data engineering tasks like cleaning data or validating your data or whatever you like, really. And the languages available to you are Python or R or Scala. And the notebook is built on top of Apache Spark, which is a big data processing framework commonly used in the data industry. Now, we also have the Spark job definition. And this is a set of instructions typically written in Python, in PySpark, that define how to execute a job on the Spark cluster. And this is more for advanced users who want a bit more control over how their data is going to be processed by the Spark engine. Now, this set of tools provides similar-ish functionality to some of these tools that you might be familiar with, like ADLS, Azure Data Lake Services, Databricks, or Snowflake. And obviously, the main personas who might be using the data engineering experience would be data engineers or analytics engineers. Next up, we have the data science experience. So The data science experience provides a complete set of tools to support the entire data science workflow within an organization, right the way through from data exploration, preparation, cleansing and experimentation, modeling, model scoring, and the serving of your insights and your predictive insights within a Power BI report. Now, the Fabric items you can create in this experience are the notebook. So the notebook is a key tool for data scientists, and they use them to explore the data through code, typically through Python or R. And the notebooks are used for data exploration, running experiments, training ML models, machine learning models, and other stuff that data scientists do as well. Another tool in this experience are experiments. So when a data scientist is training a machine learning model, typically they will run a lot of experiments to optimize the model. And the experiments item in Fabric provides functionality to track each of these different iterations and logs things like the parameters that are being used, the code versioning, and evaluation metrics for that particular model run. Now, experiments use MLflow, which is basically the industry standard for this kind of logging of machine learning model training and experimentation. Finally, we have machine learning models. So during the experimentation phase, specific versions of machine learning models can be registered using MLflow. And Fabric provides functionality for managing and reviewing these models using the machine learning model item in Fabric. And you'll find similar functionality within here that you might find in other tools like Azure Machine Learning, Synapse notebooks, and Databricks notebooks as well. And finally, the main personas that are going to be using the data science experience is, not surprisingly, data scientists. The real-time analytics experience in Fabric provides a set of tools to ingest, manage, and analyze real-time event data. And event data is a completely different paradigm, really, in data analytics and requires a different mindset and also a different set of tooling. The Fabric items you can create within this experience are the KQL database, which is a data store for your streaming datasets. It's built on top of the KQL, the Custo Query Language Engine. And if you're familiar with Azure Data Explorer for things like logging, then this is the same engine that is being used in the KQL database within Fabric. We also have event streams, and this is a no-code tool to register streaming datasets, process them, and then route them to various destinations in Fabric. We also have the KQL query set. Now, this basically allows you to query data in a KQL database using the Custo Query language. And this set of tools provides a similar functionality to the existing tools. As I mentioned, it's very similar to Azure Data Explorer. Now, there are some new things like the event stream, that's completely new, but it's built on top of the same engine. And the personas, well, it could be a data engineer or an analytics engineer, or if you have real-time or IoT, Internet of Things engineers, or perhaps security engineers, because this is used quite a lot with kind of security event logging and tracking, that sort of thing as well. So Power BI is Microsoft's business intelligence solution that allows you to create reports to present visual insights to business users. Within Fabric, there's quite a lot of items that you can create under this experience. I'm going to be talking about two of the main ones. The first one being the report. So the report is basically a business-facing business intelligence report, and you use it to visualize business data and insights and show them back to your user, your business. And when you publish a report, you also get an associated semantic model. And these are what used to be called a data set in Power BI until not too long ago. And the semantic model is a collective term that refers to all the things that make up kind of like the back end of a Power BI report. So things like your tables, your relationships, your DAX measures, and now things like calculation groups as well. All these different things make up the semantic model. This experience provides a set of tools that is similar to maybe you've used Tableau or Looker. Obviously, it's not exactly the same. There's lots of differences, but it's these kind of business intelligence tools if you're coming from a different platform. And the main users and personas who might be using this experience will be, well, the business users, not necessarily data professionals, but people who are consumers of your reports. Then you have Power BI developers and maybe BI analysts, data analysts, all going to be using Power BI. Now, the final experience I want to touch on here is Data Activator. And Data Activator is currently in preview still, and it's a very new experience, but it's a no-code experience in Fabric for automatically taking actions. For example, running a Power Automate script when patterns or conditions are detected in changing data. And this could be data in a Power BI report, or it could be event streams, as we've just seen in the real-time experience. And in Data Activator, you can create what's called a reflex. Now, a reflex lets you define a specific data point that you're tracking. Maybe it's the temperature of a fridge in an IoT system, for example. And then it also allows you to define a condition. So whenever the temperature of your fridge gets greater than 4 degrees Celsius, or whatever that is in Fahrenheit, then it's going to trigger an action. And your action can be a variety of different kind of actions. It could be a Power Automate script that runs, or it could be an email notification, or it could be a HTTP request to some other Azure function, for example, or all these different options. But basically, it monitors your data in real time. And then when the data reaches some condition, it's going to perform an action. Data Activator, I'd say, is quite unique in the data analytics market. I don't think there's too many companies doing a similar thing, at least at this scale. So you might have used tools like Power Automate or Azure Functions, which has a similar kind of if this then that type paradigm. But obviously in Azure Functions, you have to create that logic yourself most of the time. And Power Automate is not really built for enterprise scale data processing, but these are some of the tools that you could describe it as similar to, although it is unique in its own way. And the people who are going to be using this tool are, again, business users, because this is an entirely no-code experience. So it's built for people in the business to set up these things without you having to do it. So if you've got someone in marketing who really wants to track, social media impressions, and when they get above a certain level, they want to be notified. If one of your posts is going viral, you don't want to be sitting reading the Power BI report day after day, hour after hour. Really, you want to set a threshold, and once it goes above 1,000 impressions, then you want to be alerted to that fact, and then you can do something about it. So that's why Data Activator is so powerful, because people in the business can set these up for themselves in a no-code way. So we've covered a lot of ground. There's probably information overload going on inside your heads. So let's just pause here for today. But before we finish, I just want to let you know how you can get started using Fabric, and then show you lots of links to more resources that I find really helpful for learning Fabric, and I think would help you with your journey as well. Okay, so here I am inside of the school community, Learn Microsoft Fabric. And if you haven't been here before, I'd recommend you go here. We've got 15 members currently, but it's likely to go up a lot more. I haven't even advertised it yet. So follow the link in the description. Here, I basically answer any questions that you've got, and you can ask me any questions or other people in the community as well. And generally, we have lots of discussions about Fabric. So if you want to learn Fabric, I recommend you go here. And in here, I've got this classroom content, and it's called Introduction to Microsoft Fabric. And within this course, you'll find all of the notes about what I've just been describing in this course. And at the bottom, there's this Getting Started link. And here I describe 2 methods for how you can get started with Microsoft Fabric. The first one is to follow through to the documentation. That's the Microsoft documentation to set up a free trial. Now, this is good if you have admin privileges within your existing company or within your Microsoft tenant. Now, if you're just someone at home who wants to set up their own Fabric instance, especially with its own admin privileges, then there is a way to do this via the M365 developer account. I've linked to a blog post here on datawitches.com, and this is a really good blog post because it shows you how to set up an M365 developer account. And it is a little bit long-winded, but basically allows you to get a Fabric free trial with admin privileges. So really, you can use it to do whatever you want for 60 days. And in this blog post, it tells you exactly how to do that. So I recommend following these instructions and then getting your sandbox environment set up for Fabric. On top of that, I've also got this links to more resources, and some of these links are provided by Microsoft. So in their Introduction to Fabric presentation, they list these resources. So these are all Microsoft resources at the top. So links to the documentation, links to the ebook, links to Microsoft Learn, Fabric modules, some end-to-end scenarios, and Fabric notes. If you're more of a visual learner, these are some revision cards for Microsoft Fabric that you might find useful. Now, on top of that, I've listed these personal recommendations of what I think are good resources for you to learn from. So one of the best ones that I use quite regularly is the Azure Synapse YouTube channel. So they've kind of rebranded, let's say, and they're doing quite a lot of content on Microsoft Fabric. Particularly, there's a series called Fabric Espresso. And what's good about these is that they interview the people working on the Fabric product teams about how their particular product works or how a new feature works. So I definitely recommend you going there. Next up is Advancing Analytics YouTube channel. And this is really good, particularly if you're interested in learning more about Lakehouse principles. Simon there has got a lot of experience in building and designing lakehouses, and the Spark engine in particular as well. So if you're looking to learn that kind of stuff, I would recommend Advancing Analytics. We've also got Kratos BI, run by Chris Wagner, which is an awesome place to learn more about Fabric. And they have every Friday, they have like a live stream well, for me, it's in the mornings. I think if you're in the US, it would be around lunchtime. And yeah, it's just a really good resource to learn about Fabric. Next up, we have Tales from the Field. And Tales from the Field, again, is like a regular discussion and roundup about what's happening in the Fabric data community. So if you don't have much time to get your head around all the different news and events and ways that people are working with Fabric, then I recommend Tales from the Field. It's a great bunch of guys, all working for Microsoft, all working with clients on kind of figuring this stuff out as well. So there's some good insights in that one as well. I'd also recommend fabric.guru, which is a blog run by Sandeep Pawar. And this is a really good resource for helping you understand a wide range of topics. Especially Sandeep loves going into some of the more technical stuff, figuring out how these systems can integrate, working out cool new workflows that are available to us in Fabric, and he documents them really well in a lot of detail. So I would definitely recommend you checking that out. Another one is Data Mozart, focusing mainly on Power BI, but now he's producing a lot more content on Fabric, particularly recently around the DP600, which is one of the certification exams. Well, it's the only Fabric certification exam currently that allows you to become a certified Fabric analytics engineer. So if you're interested in that, I definitely recommend checking out Data Mozart. And the final one is a blog by Sam De Bruyne. And this is basically a collection of articles about Fabric. And he focuses, I think previously he was focusing on Azure and kind of the Microsoft data stack in general. But now Sam's been producing some of the best blog posts that I've read come from Sam. So I definitely recommend, if you like reading blog posts about Fabric, to check this one out as well. If you've made it this far, I want to say thank you very much for watching. And I would love it if you leave a fire emoji in the comments, just to let me know that you've made it all the way to the end. If you have any questions, then I recommend that you join our Learn Microsoft Fabric community and ask away. The link is in the description or down here.